session today, I would like to call Shuaib, the Vice Program Director, to recite the dua. As for the non-Muslim, please observe a moment of silence.
Thank you, Abdul Fattah. Assalamu alaikum, guys. First of all, welcome and thank you for joining us on this event. We will start our dua recitation by reciting Surah Al-Fatiha first. Al-Fatiha. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. O Allah, I beg thee of all good things which pertains to this day and days hereafter, and seek Allah's protection from all evil which pertains to this day and days hereafter. O Allah, you are peace, and all peace is from you, and all peace returns to you. O Master of power and glory, in conjunction of our time management workshop, guide us among those whom you guide. Grant us health and pardon among those whom you grant health and pardon. Allahumma ya qawiyyun ya azizun ya fa'alun lima yurid. O Allah, verily we ask you for the best application and the best success and the best speed and the best reward. O Allah, unite us as the leaders who will display the spirit of solidarity and unity to move forward in a single direction. O Allah, you are the most forgiving and the one who loves forgiving. Therefore, forgive us and grant us a pleasant and productive experience and memorable memories at our beautiful University International. اللهم بارك لنا في شعبان وبلغنا رمضان. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين. آمين يا رب العالمين.
Ameen, Ya Rabbal Alameen. Thank you, Shuaib, and thank you, Unitin students, for joining this workshop. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Abdul Fattah Naufal, and I am your MC for today. In our today program, the Time Management Workshop, organized by Unitin International Student Society, we will have 3 sessions by our speaker to learn some tips and techniques in managing our time and forming the right habits. Ladies and gentlemen, we are pleased to introduce to you our speaker for today, Mr. Carroll. Mr. Keller Corbett has completed his Master in Computer Science, Human and Computer Interaction, and he has extensive experience working as a trainer and IT professional in Malaysia and Europe. During his extensive experience, he has played many roles, as it's shown in the slide. And without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Keller to start the workshop. Mr. Keller, the stage is yours.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Yeah, my name is Kirill, not Killer, as our MCs mentioned here. I think we tried to practice, but again, management is something that you have to work on all day in, day out. Even if you practice, sometimes you get it wrong. So can everyone hear me? I mean, voice coming through?
Yes, it's coming through.
Alhamdulillah. Thank God. Okay, so I just want to start by saying that today, of course, is going to be a virtual workshop. It's going to go on until, yeah, well, about 2 hours. So if you're listening in your headphones, you're doing something else, you know, it's totally fine. But if you can pay attention, would be great, because there's a lot of things that we're going to cover today. And firstly, I want to say that it's going to be something that you can pick out in bits and pieces. So something that you feel like, okay, this whole workshop was too much for me, right? Too many things. So even if you take out one thing and it benefits you in some way, I will be very happy and pleased. Okay, so you know, anything that I say of mistake, of course, is my fault, and may Allah bless this session so that you all also can learn from it, inshallah. And thank you again for joining. So briefly, just maybe talk about myself a little bit. My name is Kirill, Muslim name Khairul. Just became a Muslim 4 years ago, 4 years plus. So and it's a new journey for me. And again, this is something that has been going on in my whole life, new beginnings, right? So how do you go on, you know, from a start when you're in the kindergarten? They ask you, what do you want to be? Everyone says, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a policeman. I want to be a fireman. And then sometimes life catches you and you think, wow, that was so far away from where I ended up, you know? So my backstory is very simple. If you guys can imagine, you know, at your age, when I was 25 or so, I was just finishing up university, and I thought to myself, well, you know, the world lies ahead. So I've tried pretty much everything you can think of. I mean, I've been a serial entrepreneur, as they call it. I had a hard time deciding what I wanted to do, so I started to try everything. The subject that I chose in university was computer science, because I thought computers going to be everywhere, and I think, yeah, I was proven right in a way. So computers could take me anywhere, meaning to say any field or any direction, I could use my skills there. And alhamdulillah, this is what led me into that path. So back then, user interfaces or user experience was not something that you would hear of. We call it human-computer interaction back then. So I started to gravitate towards this direction in my field, whereby I started to look into design, creative design, became a self-learned graphic designer in a way while running my businesses as well. And you can see that, you know, I have, you know, some idea about what to do visually, creatively, right? So while doing all this, I'm running a school. I've been running a martial arts school for the past 10, 11 years. And I've trained martial arts for quite some time. Just had 2 kids, so I'm almost a full-time father, and this is what I'm doing right now is kind of on my spare time, to be honest. So in a way, what we can take away from it is that if you asked me back then, if I was sitting in your chair right now, did I think or did I plan ahead and see myself where I am? So imagine, I lived 9 years in Sweden. I've migrated to, sorry, I started my journey in Russia, and then I left to Sweden, and I left then to study in Canada, came back from Canada, worked in Germany. After Germany, went to Malaysia, and I've been in Malaysia for the past 16 years, which actually makes me more Malaysian than pretty much any other country that I've been at. So the interesting fact is, again, I wouldn't have known. If you ask me, no idea. So what we're gonna talk about is, imagine if you had this many starts as I had, meaning to say that you were not certain from a young age what you wanted to do. And you planned ahead, but on the path, you had the chance to reinvent yourself and kind of think, okay, this is a new beginning for me. I'm moving to a new country. I can start over. Nobody knows my flaws. Nobody knows my strengths. Nobody knows my weaknesses. I can work on creating a new persona. Okay? So this new persona is something that you create, and you learn, of course, from your mistakes. And you say, look, I tried something, it didn't completely work out, and I'm gonna start new, all right? So I did this all the time, and every time I started, gave me an opportunity to pick up a new hobby, a new language, a new skill. And alhamdulillah, now sitting here, I can say that even though I'm not maybe 100% proficient at something, not meaning to say I haven't mastered something really, really well, and I'm still kind of working on that. Instead of being a laser, I'm more of a flashlight right now, meaning to say my scope is wide, but inside that wide scope, I can also focus certain skills. So what I wanted to share with you guys is how to balance those things. Like, for example, you're studying something in your university. You have your hobbies outside. You're doing certain things with your parents, with your friends, and so on. And all this requires your time, but also your effort. And how do you, with this limited amount of time and limited amount of time during the day, and let's say the week, the month, and you're put into this program, when you say, okay, you have to achieve certain things within this time. For example, you guys are in university, say within 2, 3, 4 years, you're going to graduate, you're going to have a diploma, then you're going to work. Your work dictates that you have this much time to progress in your career, to become either a doctor, whatever you want to continue to study or whatnot. So that's going to build a foundation for you for the rest of your life. And I'm going to talk to you about this as well later on, but what I did in university days, the habits that I built, whatever I started to pick up, and whatever good and bad stuck with me, still is with me today. So whatever you guys doing at your age, and I'm assuming you guys are a little bit younger than me. I just turned 40 this year, alhamdulillah. So this is the blessed time to start a new journey for me as well. But during that time, those habits, this is the formative years where it's going to be difficult for you to change later on. Of course, it's doable, but whatever you do now, and if you do it consciously, it will stick with you for the rest of your life. And I hope that's something that we can work on, and it's going to be something that is beneficial. So for me, it took me a long time to realize what is it exactly that I want. So I always knew, okay, I'm a creative person. I like to think out of the box. I like to solve problems in a way that maybe other people cannot see. Right? So I always thought that technology is something that I'm very, very fond of. So I've created myself with creative digital technology, meaning to say gadgets, lots of computers. I have more screens than I think I don't know anyone with that many computers as I have, even though I use them for learning tools, and people come into my classes and learn. But this is my passion. Right? And martial arts was something that I picked up early, and I will tell you why I did it. So it was a conscious decision, not that I grew up with martial arts movies back in Russia when we didn't have any Western movies. What we did was we watching Hong Kong Kung Fu movies, which inspired me quite a lot, I think. So later on, I started to do Kung Fu, Taekwondo, Aikido. Now I'm doing karate. So everything from Chinese, Japanese to Korean martial arts. I haven't done any Russian martial arts, which is a bit weird, but we'll get to that too. So this is something that I settled on, and I've always, I've never been employed in my whole life. So if you ask me, how do you become a successful career person, I think I'm the wrong person to tell you. But at the same time, I can tell you how you can become a person that can be applicable in all, just like we said, like, a good Muslim or a good person is someone that you put anywhere and he will sprout. He will become, just with a drop of rain, he will, flourish. So I think this is something that I'm trying to apply onto myself, that no matter which situation I end up being in, I try to do the most out of it by being helpful to other people as well. So I think this is something that we can learn on, take away from, that doesn't matter where you go in your life past this, but you have to find yourself in a position where you can be of benefit. Okay? So in this workshop, I've divided it into 3 sections, just like we mentioned. And the sections is basically going to be theoretical, okay? So the mindset. First of all, before doing anything, you need to be very clear in terms of what it is that you want to do, all right? And then how do you do it? That's the practical part. And the last one is the kind of the tools, the modern tools and the technology that can help us with this. And of course, we'll be wrapping up and have a bit of a Q&A. And if you have any questions already, I think the chat is still open. And if it's something urgent, if you please feel free to correct me as well if I'm saying something that is, out of line or something that you feel is strange. But later on, of course, in the chat, we'll come back to all these questions and mention. So I think if we start here, I'm producing this video as well in a way. So if you bear with me, we have a concept of time. This workshop is about time. If you see my slide jumping a little bit, it's my HDMI that is, technology always gives you a headache, but I think it's going to be keeping you awake a little bit as well, so it doesn't stick completely onto the screen. So we have 3 fragments of time. That's the only thing we know, meaning to say we are living in the present, right? This is the only thing that can happen is what's happening right now. And whatever happened just a few moments ago is already in our past. Whatever is going to be happening soon, which we don't know what is, the year 2020, I think, showed us that. Whatever we were projecting or expecting doesn't necessarily always happen, right? So that is the future. So how the human mind works is very simple, right? In a way that we live right now, but we have a memory bank, which we refer to, which creates our past. Through this, we then apply our past experiences onto something that we call the future, meaning to say, with a calculated effort, we can estimate what is going to happen soon. However, neither the past or the future is actually happening, right? I mean, we haven't at least reached this understanding of parallel universes or time being in multiple dimensions and whatnot, but the only way we experience it is right now, meaning to say, the only thing we really can work on is how to be present, focused, strong, or whatever characteristics you want to bring into it right now. So I think many people have this issue with this alignment of time, meaning to say, I'm either always thinking about what happened, so all my mistakes, or I'm always thinking about what I'm going to do tomorrow, what I'm going to have for dinner, what I'm going to do tonight. So your mind is constantly somewhere else, meaning to say you're now disconnected from where you are at this moment. And that is a problem, because what we need to learn is how to manage this so that we are always focused on what is happening now, but we have some idea of how to plan it for the future so that it becomes a good past, right? Because again, the past has been a future at some point, right? So it's just those 2 timelines aligning and then becomes behind you, right, instead of in front of you. So I think that's something that we need to discuss. And I think for us as humans, this is something that is quite exclusive to us, meaning to say when, the famous story from the Bible and, the Quranic, the Ahli Kitab, meaning to say that those who know the books, they say when Adam, alayhi salam, took a bite of that apple, suddenly this concept of time opened up, meaning to say in paradise, which is eternal. And eternal means that concept of time doesn't really exist. That means there's no beginning, there's no end, it just is, right? And when he ate, he came to a place where there was a past and a future, and he can then be stuck, and all this pain and suffering is in his mind. So all of these religions are touching on these, like Buddhists or Hindus are talking about suffering and all these, the consequences of time, basically. And this is what we have to deal with, because still we are born on this earth, and we're giving these dimensions, meaning to say space and time, right? But by right, also physics has shown us that this is almost something that can be united at some point as well. But again, we're living with these premises, and this is what we can control. We cannot control so much of the space, especially now in 2021 when we have, we cannot travel anywhere, even across our state borders. So space becomes very limited for us. Time, as you guys know, sitting at home in front of the computer screen all day long is also something pretty difficult. So we have to be able to manage time in a certain way that it becomes beneficial to us. Because again, I want to reiterate, everyone who's born, as a human being at least, gets this concept of 24 hours, meaning to say each of one of us has exactly the same amount of time, whether you're rich, poor, you're dark-skinned, light-skinned, you're small, you're big, you're whatever you are, 24 hours. However, how you manage those hours is completely individual, okay? And it can be decided by our cultures, or it can be decided just by our customs, or your own internal clock, right? So as time has shown us as well, that there are many ways to view time, and the cultures perceive these times differently. Meaning to say, right now in the Western world, the capitalist system works on a very linear way, meaning to say we see as a beginning and an end. We are born and then we die, and life goes on. And this linear progression is actually almost always something that goes upwards, meaning to say that we view our evolution or moving forward as something that's supposed to be increasing, meaning to say we get better with time. However, looking back at history, it's not always the case. Things were not always better. Maybe our economic system has gone up, but if you look at environmental issues and whatnot, we're at the brink of extinction as a species if we keep going this way. And this is something that science also backs. So again, looking at a linear system, it's also quite limited. If you look at the Eastern way of looking at the world, here in Southeast Asia and Korea, Japan, China, India, we've had a very cyclical way of looking at time, whereby it goes in cycles. And this is something that you can also see from nature. I mean, you wake up in the morning, you can assume that next morning you're going to wake up too, meaning to say that the sun everything revolves in circles or spirals or spheres. So it comes around. Seasons, days, months, and birthdays, if you celebrate those. So those things can tell us about how nature is created, which means repetition, right? So this is something like a cyclical way. A flexible view of time is where you can actually start to look in between those things. So time is neither limited or it's not infinite. It is something that you create in a way that I'm going to use it to my own advantage, meaning to say I'm not so really focused on time, but I'm focusing on the quality inside this scope of time that I'm given. So meaning to say you're not only blindly looking for achievements. I'm going to do this when I'm 40 years old. I'm going to do this when I'm 50 years old. Meaning to say it's more like, instead of the destination, you're looking more at the journey. And you've heard this before. And this is, I think, where society is kind of leaning towards now as well. So this is something that we need to understand. And of course, every one of us always asks, and I think you guys know it too, what is really my purpose? Meaning to say I've been placed on this earth. I've been given, I came here as a human, born, my parents gave birth to me. I had no choice. I didn't choose where I was born, when I was born, what time, what predicament, who I would, what would life dictate me to be? So in a way, this is something that is in your control. I mean, we can say that predestination, for those of you who are Muslims, we believe in qada and qadr, meaning to say that everything that is going to happen has already happened. However, it still doesn't mean that you just let it go and let everything be. No, you do your best to your full utmost ability, and then things will fall into place as they should, right? So this is what we believe. And there's a concept which I think can be quite eye-opening for many of us, is to really understand how your interests, how your skills, and how your natural predispositions can be utilized in the best way. And this is a concept of ikigai, which is a Japanese term, which I'm gonna change to the slide again. I apologize, the slide is a bit jumpy. So here, as you can see, we have this quadrant, right? The four circles where we have mission, vocation, profession, and passion. And I hope you guys understand what this entails. Meaning to say, mission is something that you feel that the world needs, right? Vocation means that it's your job. This is what you can be paid for. The profession. And passion is something that you're good at, right? So we start to see these circles intertwining, where it becomes something that you can ask yourself, what am I good at? What do I love? What can I be paid for? And what does the world need? So I think each and one of us can plot it down on a paper and say, okay, look, currently I am now at this line of the quadrant. Am I too far, whereby I know that this is something I like and this is something that I'm good at, but I cannot get paid for it? So for example, a lot of times, parents used to say to their kids, you're always stuck in gaming. This is a waste of time. But however, a lot of e-gamers nowadays earn big money. So they say, look, it can be used as a profession. And then we ask ourselves, is this something that the world needs? And in my honest opinion, and I don't want to step on anyone's toes, but maybe not. Maybe what the world needs right now is not more e-gamers, right? Because it's just entertainment, right? So the world is full of entertainment. We're being struck down by this flurry of entertainment. So you ask yourself, maybe this is not what the world needs. So let's say if the world needs more humanity, right? More charity work, then you ask yourself, is this something that I can be paid for? Because at the end of the day, you don't want to go into charitable work and then having to starve yourself. I mean, if you're ready for it. But it's good to have this balance, meaning to say that this concept of ikigai helps you to align yourself so that you know, what am I going to spend my time on, and which direction am I right now going in? So if I'm focusing more on things that have no purpose in this concept, then I should look back and say, maybe this is something that I can take away. Because if your goal is to become someone who is useful, it means you are good at it, the world needs it, you can make a job out of it, right? And it's also your passion, something you would do for free as well. So I think this is something that you guys really need to start realizing early, because it took me a long time to find myself, and I had to try a lot of things to really find my ikigai. And to me, it's like really this Japanese concept of martial arts with creative work, and I can put it all together, and I also can spread it to others and teach it to others. So to me, it becomes a passion, right? And it's also something that I'm paid for, something I won't say I'm good at it, but I can good enough to deliver work. And my mission, of course, is to contribute. And I want everyone, I mean, I know you guys, sitting in front of the screen for 2 hours per day, or 8 hours per day, or how many hours you sit in front of the screen, you become a consumer, meaning to say you always take in information, but you don't give it back. So I think it's good for us to be more of creators than consumers, because the world now is set up for everyone to become this kind of a consumer culture, right? You have to spend, you buy, you digest, you watch, but how about giving back? So I think if you then can use this graph to kind of align yourself and see where you would end up, and how your current studying, how your current hobbies fit into this picture, right? So that's very, very important. And again, I'm gonna share these concepts later on with you guys. So if there's something that you missed, or if you want to take a note down and look for yourself, again, I'm just opening up doors for you guys to look into further. So like a concept like ikigai, for example, you can see more of it online, and of course that's going to open up new possibilities and doors for you too. So I think that's very, very important. When you kind of have an idea in your mind that, okay, this is something that I like, I feel like this is going to be professional. Since you're enrolled into school already, that means you already had some idea. Like, okay, I was into coding, I was into engineering, I like to solve these kind of problems. This is something that I am fond of. I can see that there's a market need for it. The world needs people like this. So you're starting to gravitate towards that. The next thing to do is actually to have an understanding of how that's going to look like in the future. And this is called visualization. This is a tool that you develop over time. When you're young, you don't really have a good ability to grasp the future. Meaning to say, oh, I want to be a doctor, you want to be a fireman, but then they tell you, look, a doctor has to spend this many years in university, and you say, oh, wait. I want to realign my idea, I want to do something easier, right? So not always you're informed about your visualization, the future as you see it. So a person who is creative in his thinking, right, creates these affirmations. For example, I pray that things will turn out this way, and then somehow, though they do turn out that way, that means my prayers came true, right? And in a way, that's what we do in our dua, or people who go to temples and pray and whatnot, because they always want to have these affirmations of, please let this happen to me, or whatever that has happened to me, I want this to be an ease upon me. So visualization is very important. So for example, if I ask you guys, just in your head, think about it yourself, where do you see yourself sitting right now? Like you're physically there in 10 years. Like, are you at a desk? Are you in a different country? Are you married with children? Is there, what is the situation around you? Like, again, visualization is not just eyes. You close your eyes and you see things. It's more like you can almost place yourself. It becomes an out-of-body experience. Like, look, how does it feel to be a doctor? So a lot of stress. I have to work 24-hour shifts. I have to say, oh, wait, that doesn't feel good. Right? So putting yourself in these predicaments tells you a little bit of how is that future going to be. And a person who visualizes can almost tell the future, meaning to say that you place yourself in these situations, and it requires a lot of empathy, meaning to say you have to be able to think like other people. You also have to be able to think different from yourself, meaning to say if I'm always stuck in my own way of thinking, I cannot ever think like anyone else. Therefore, I cannot change myself. So if you're a person who likes to change for the better, you have to give up your habits, meaning to say that the way that I'm doing things right now are possibly not the best. Okay, so this is something that we have to be clear about, that our way is not always the right way, and that's why we always try to improve by having these calls to become better. Okay, so if you can imagine it, it can become a reality. But however, it takes work. And we're going to get to the working part, meaning to say that not only your dream, a dream without action is just a dream, but a dream with action and follow-up becomes your plan, right? Your purpose. So again, how do you put those two together, right? So there's a quote here that I've put, and it says, the lack of direction, not lack of time, is the problem. We all have 24 hours per day. And this is what I was saying to you guys earlier. So everyone has the same amount of time. Now, what you do with this amount of time is going to form your present. So if you're always someone who wastes time, and wasting time means you're not doing anything productive with it. So for example, if I'm sitting down, I'm just having a coffee, or I'm checking my phone, I'm in social media, is not a productive. It doesn't help me to reach my goals. And I want you to think about this and almost have it as a reminder to yourself for the next couple of days, maybe even just for 1 hour, or at least for now. Think about it. Is this class, what I'm doing right now, helping me to reach my purpose? Like, am I in this class and does it help me to solve a problem? If not, you should go out from this class right now and do something that benefits you, right? But I'm hoping that this class is actually beneficial to you guys, so I'm not wasting your time, of course. So you should always ask yourself, is what I'm eating beneficial to me? Does this help me to reach my purpose? Is what I'm doing or looking at right now helping me, right? Or am I resting now? Am I winding down? Is this rest, the quality of this rest, helping me to recover so I can do the next step? So again, you need to have this critical thinking that always asks yourself, is this in line with my purpose? Again, if your purpose is short-term, meaning to say you haven't figured out what you want to be yet, but let's say, for example, you set short-term goals. Okay, I want to graduate. I want to graduate with honors. I want to become a better student. I want to, have good marks so I can go and find a good job. That means your purpose should be right there. Okay? I want to finish this term and clear all my exams. Alhamdulillah. Just do it. Set that goal short-term. But if you can think further and say, look, I want to finish my degree so that I can be a successful engineer and I want to work at this company. Like, you're very specific, right? Then you think, am I in this culture already? Am I thinking like a person that could be employed by this company, right? So everything that goes on your CV is something that people will look at, right? And a lot of times if you ask HR, the human resources people, what they even do to get you to an interview nowadays, it's very tough. That means a lot of people have to submit their CVs, and just CVs alone, they will have a stack, and only 3 calls later, maybe they'll call you up for the meeting. And that's a problem, right? That means anything you do, whether they know you or not, goes on your CV. And that's a problem in the sense that if you make mistakes, it will stain you for a long time. So in a way, they will look at the holistic picture, right? Nowadays, you just don't look at qualifications in your school. So how well did you do academically? What did you do in your pastime? How is your character? What have you done, to help the society or whatnot? That means, and not just to be person who looks for, in Malaysia is like looking for dato-ship, right? I want to be dato, therefore I have to contribute, I do this. So not like that. More, if you want to be a balanced person, right? It's all about well-being in many, many different spheres. So again, I apologize for my jumpy slide, but it's going to be something that you can see here, which is spiritual wellness, social wellness, emotional wellness, occupational wellness, intellectual wellness, environmental, financial, and physical. So for a person to be, in a way, balanced, as we call it nowadays, is someone who checks in and spends time a little bit here and there. Meaning to say, if you're just married to your job, as they say, and you're spending 18 hours at work, maybe you're doing well financially or occupationally or socially, but you're missing out on family life, for example, or other emotional things that you don't have friends, or you feel disattached from your community or whatnot. So a person who is balanced is able to spend a little bit of time here and there. That means if you're focusing only on your studies and you say, look, I want to ace my exams, that means you learn how to be book smart, right? And this way of thinking, the smartness of like studying and acing exams, is not always what the world requires, right? So being good at acing exams is not a qualification that you always need later on, because knowledge is both subjective and objective. We'll come to that in a while as well. But you have to be able to know how to solve problems. And I mean, if a problem requires your time, at home you need to help out, or at school, or you need to do something with your club or society. So you need to be able to be flexible. And we spoke about this flexible time, meaning to say you're on standby to be of use. So someone who thinks linear means like, I don't care, I'm going to start this, I'm going to finish this. If somebody interrupts me on the way, I'm going to get upset and say, don't disturb me because I'm focused on this and this and this, right? Somebody who just goes in circles can get stuck in these circles too. So someone who's flexible, meaning to say, if a problem comes, I assess and say, is this something that I can do quickly and then move on to back to where I was going? And meaning to say, you guys heard this term before, and we're gonna talk about this as well. It's multitasking, right? So what is multitasking in a way? And to me, the concept is very interesting because it doesn't really represent how we do things. If you look at how computers are built, is now you used to be, dual core processors was like, wow, big thing. And it came with hyper-threading, meaning to say each processor could have two processing cores. So from a two-core processor, you would have 4 lanes of computing. That means simultaneously, you can compute 4 tasks. However, our brain is not wired that way. We can only do everything at once. That means I cannot do 5 things at the same time. So multitasking is a myth in a way, but we can assign ourselves to 5 different tasks, and then we're required to solve them simultaneously, right? So in a way, that's not how you will approach a problem, because that's not how the human mind works. You can train yourself to be better at doing things at the same time, but if we're not doing things in parallel, we're doing everything in serial way, right? So in short, what I want to tell you is we have to become really good at switching between tasks, right? And this is where this concept comes in. If I want to switch and then switch back and to solve another problem, I want to be very effective, all right? So in the martial art that I'm teaching called Aikido, which means the way to unify the universal, the universal energy in a way, is to do things like a swordsman would do. So in the feudal Japan, we would have the samurai caste, right? With the warrior, the knights, and they would always carry the blade. And they always say a blade is a weapon that shouldn't be drawn, because you're trying to solve conflicts without drawing your weapon. But having that weapon, of course, will give you that kind of respect where people know that he's going to draw it. If the problem cannot be solved diplomatically, I'm going to solve it physically, right? So when they draw their sword, usually they don't want to go for a battle that is prolonged. They would want to cut, and straight away that's a kill. So they say 1 cut, 1 kill, right? So this is something that I try to apply in my life, and I hope that's something you guys can understand the value of, at least after today's session. And the value of that is actually this: like, as soon as you put your mind into something, you know how to treat it, meaning to say, it doesn't clog you up and you just get stuck there and you can't pull yourself out. It's more like I dive in, I fix it, and I come back out. So then you can become this person who goes into these different pockets of space and time and solves problems as he goes along. And then you become flexible in the sense that no matter where you turn, you're efficient. You can solve problems. So just to share with you guys, this is something that I thought helped me. I mean, the way that I learned in university was not a specific topic, but university taught me how to learn, meaning to say, I now had an approach for how to solve any given problem. Because you're given, let's say, how many subjects in your years of study. If you're in a bachelor or your master's degree, you'd be in, they're throwing 40 topics at you, right? And it's continuous. And it's like, I just have to drop everything, the knowledge that I had from the last semester, build on top of that. But if you ask me today to redo that exam, maybe I can't. Like, you prepare for that exam, you ace it. 2 months later, you barely remember. And I'm not sure if you guys, feel like this, but I think many of us do. So therefore, learning itself is a skill. Meaning to say, you don't learn your subjects right now to know the subjects. It's more like if they throw you in a work environment and they give you like, look, this is a new project, completely new variables, how are you going to solve it, right? And then what is required of you is to be able to quickly grasp the topic, research it, fix it, and come out and say, okay, done, beautifully. I had no idea how to do this before, but because I learned how to learn, therefore I could apply my learning skills onto something that I had no idea about. So I think that's something that you guys should think of. Like, if you find yourself in subjects that you don't find motivating, like, oh, this is not part of my purpose, this is not what I'm like or what I'm good at. However, I would like to challenge you to this thinking, to say, imagine if your aim is to learn so that even a boring subject is something that you can just ace, meaning to say you come out with flying colors, right? So you put in a little bit of effort, even a boring subject, you become good at. And I want to give you an idea. I don't know if you guys watch Netflix, and if you do, there was a great documentary about the Chicago Bulls team. I don't know if you guys know, but they were, perpetual champions in the 90s with Michael Jordan at the helm. And it was beautiful because a lot of times he was challenged. He was a very good sportsman. And when people came to him and said, look, you're good at dunking, you're a good player, but your three-pointers are not great. Right, so what he did after that season, when somebody told him that, he came back and became the best three-pointer in the league. Meaning to say, from his weakness, he turned it into his strength. And that's what I want you to think about. When you don't like something, that's not necessarily because, oh, I don't love it or anything. It's just like you're not good at it, so therefore you don't feel like it's something that is easy to you or people reward you for it with good comments or whatnot. So to be able to be good at the boring stuff is what separates champions from normal people. Meaning to say, all of us are born with some kind of predisposition, meaning to say, I'm better at this than I am at that. For example, me, myself, I have a low center of gravity. I'm fairly short and my legs are short, which is really good for Aikido as a martial art. But in karate, I need to be flexible and have long legs, which I'm not, right? But again, I challenge myself to be good at different martial arts, which doesn't actually fit me in the way I'm built physically. But that's the whole idea. If I can overcome my physical or my mental, not to say disabilities, but disadvantages. And a lot of times we are disabled in certain ways, like no one's born perfect, right? So if we can overcome difficulty, if we can overcome hurdles that are difficult to us, I think this is what makes us truly outstanding as people. And in a way, to move on to the next is, how do you do it? Okay, I want to ask you, like, okay, let's say I don't like that class. I hate it. I go to that class, I just look at the book and it's like, no, don't want to be there. To me, this is what happened with algebra or mathematics, because when I chose computer science, I thought programming, like doing cool stuff, building websites, and then they come and give me a calculus book, and I say, what is this? Who signed me up for a calculus class? But as you know, when you're writing algorithms and do a lot of computations, like you need to understand the mathematical foundation behind of it, right? So it was very tough for me because I was pretty good at it, but it's not something I liked. I thought, okay, now I can go to university. I'm just going to forget about all the difficult or tough classes that I didn't like. And then suddenly I can just, leave it all behind me. And it came back up, right? So how do you go to a class like that and say, okay, I'm going to be really good at it? And the way I've done this myself, which I think you guys can try out at least, is to put a carrot at the end of the stick. Meaning to say, as soon as there's something that you don't like, right? Whatever it could be, a task or a subject or something in life, like, you know, even traveling to see a particular person that you don't like, but you're forced with, like a family member that you feel is a bit intimidating, or, you know, someone you don't enjoy. Say like, look, after this, I'm going to reward with myself with something that I really like. Meaning to say, right after I do something I really dislike, I'm going to reward myself with something I really like. Meaning to say, a carrot at the end of the stick. So if I survive this long trek, for example, I'm going to go and reward myself with a good foot massage. All right? And then you're actually looking forward to the foot massage, and you forget all about the trek. So that is a way to kind of hack your habits of thinking bad about things and say, look, I know I'm going to dislike it, so I'm going to look forward to something right behind it, and you place it right behind, right? So that's one way to do it, so that later on, after a few times when you put that carrot on the stick, suddenly you don't need the carrot anymore. And you will just imagine this pain or the fear or the uncertainty is not going to stick with you forever. Meaning to say that sooner or later, it will go away and you can just do that task without even rewarding yourself, and it becomes second nature. So that leads us to the next step, which is if you can do it on small things. Like, for example, if you have a class on Tuesday or Wednesday, or tomorrow is Thursday, Thursday, and you have a class and say, I don't like this class. You start straight away. After this class, I'm going to go and buy myself some bubble tea. Not that I promote bubble tea, but let's say, for example, you like bubble tea and say, I'm going to buy myself a bubble tea right after class because that's tough, and I'm going to just thinking about the bubble tea. But that will help you to survive, right? And then you start thinking about it on long term as well. Meaning to say, okay, I don't like this particular time of the year, right? Or I don't like whatever it is that you like. You can start to look forward to it on a bigger scale. So if you can fix it on a small scale, you can also fix it on a bigger scale. And this is something that we take from martial arts. So for example, if I'm guarded, I'm fighting with a person, he comes up and he wants to punch me, right? I need to be reacting all the time quickly. And if I don't react in time, I'm going to get hit. Meaning to say, the pain is going to help me to block the next punch. And if I can control the small ones, later on, those small things become my battle. And that battle becomes the war, right? So you can see it progresses and gradually becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. So you don't win a war without winning the battles and the smallest battle. And you don't win battles without winning the little fights, meaning I need to be always active and I need to be ahead of the curve in order to get out of it successfully and victoriously. What you can notice is very important. If you have classmates who are either more proficient than you in their field, and by field I mean they're better at the subject, and you say, well, it comes to them so easily or whatnot, or they just achieve so much more. You know, I look at some of my colleagues who, when they're 40, you know, they have amassed huge fortunes, they've done this, they have a doctorate from here, they speak 7 languages, and I go, where have I been all this time, you know? And you wonder, because just like we said, 24 hours a day applies to everyone, but how could they achieve so much? Is it because they were focused early on and they just knew, okay, I'm going to do it? Or is it because they can get more things done in the same space? And I like to think that it's a combination. So if you are someone who can do more every day than your average person, over time, that becomes, you're running laps around people around you. So if they're inside that hour of gym class, they ran 5 times around the track and you ran 10 times, I mean, you were there for 1 hour, right? And this is something quite interesting as well. A lot of people ask you, how long have you done martial arts? Or how long have you done this? How long have you lived in this country? How long have you studied that language? And you say, let's say, for example, 5 years. But inside those 5 years, you were not always 24 hours a day doing that particular task. So you were doing it maybe once a week. So if you take 1 hour per week, you know, 52 weeks per year, you did it for 50 hours for 5 years. That means you put in an effort of 250 hours to do it, right? And a person who then spends 40 hours per week doing that will achieve as much as you in about a month and a half. right? 5 years equivalent to a month and a half. So it just depends on how focused you are and how much effort are you putting into that task. So rather than saying it like, I've learned Arabic for 5 years, for example, it's like, no, I learned it for 1.5 months and I know more than what a fluent person would do. And I think that's how the Sahaba, if you guys who study Islamic history as well, who understand that back in the days, that's what they did. I mean, they didn't have translators. Maybe they would just go there and learn a language in order to spread their mission or dawah. And that was fast because they had no choice. I cannot go into Google and translate or find someone on Fiverr to translate things for me. I had to actually acquire that knowledge and I had to do it quickly, right? So ask yourself, how fast am I at doing things? Am I someone who's just, take my sweet little time, no rush, and in Spain and Europe, they usually call it mañana, right? And you take your siestas, meaning to say, tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll take it easy. And I think Malaysia has this kind of culture too, meaning like people around you in a slow pace and we just go in and kind of fit in, right? And that's not always necessarily good because people who go out from Malaysia to other countries, they feel that the pace is a little bit different, especially Western countries where they're like everyone's working and it's no quality time. So I think they just differently align. But having said that, I'm not talking this about this from a purely vocational or professional way that we have to be good at our work. It's more how fast or efficient are you on anything, like tying your shoes, getting up from your bed in the morning, tidying your room, doing the chores. And this is usually how I look at people. And I think you guys can look at it too. What is a person doing that is not so important to him? Doesn't look like it's a big thing. Like it's not something that he's particularly even interested in. But how well does he do it? And to me, that says a lot about a character of a person. So, and usually what we say is how to see if a person, how good is his character? How well does he treat a person who is not important to him? And it kind of the same, they're kind of neighbors. So if the king comes over for dinner, of course everyone's going to be nice to him. But let's say it's a person just walks into the room, you know nothing about him, he looks like a, maybe not so clean or whatnot, you're not asking for help, you say, well, who are you, And that kind of effect that you give to that person is going to reflect on how you do things. If it's not important to you, or if people are not looking at you while you're doing something good, you don't do it. No, everything is a purpose in the sense that whatever life gives me, as we discussed earlier, I neither live in the past, nor can I live in the future. That means anything that comes to me in this present, I need to handle. And I have a choice to either handle it in a good way or in a bad way. And if I'm not aware that I'm handling it in a bad way, that means I'm not aware of it. Okay? So in Islam, for those of you who are Muslims, if you know about Islamic traditions, even stepping into a bathroom, you have to do it with a certain leg because you just have to be aware. And these pockets, these kind of reminders, teach us that everything is of importance. That no matter what it is, you still have to do it with your awareness. And awareness plays a big role in the sense that I now can dictate whether this is going to be of benefit to me or not. So if I'm doing something in a way that is the way it should be done, I mean, the best optimal way to solve this particular problem, whether it's going to the subway, whether it's reading a book, whether it's putting on your shoes or cooking your meal, there's either the right way to do it or the wrong way to do it. Or like, let's say there's 100 ways to do it, but some are better than others. And I want you to think about that. How good am I at doing things which has absolutely no meaning to anyone? Because again, your life is filled of moments of no meaning. But that's exactly what creates the meaning. If you can make a meaning out of everything and you treat everything as an opportunity to do good, to be the best person that you can be, and you are constantly in this kind of mindset, that means whatever life throws at you all the time, you can enjoy it because you're doing it with affection and a purpose. And a lot of times we're kind of being turned away from it. Let's say distractions, right? TV, social media, smartphone. So we build these habits of doing things that are not really beneficial to us, right? So a lot of times I think you guys heard of this term as well. It's called the 20-80 rule. So I want to show you the jumping slide again. So for something that, I'm going to turn myself off here. So here is 80% of effort that only gives you 20% of results versus 20% of effort that gives you 80% results. And this is usually how our life is structured. We will always spend most of our time doing something that is not really beneficial to us. And what is beneficial to us, we kind of waste. So if you're better at aligning yourself to do more of the things that are of purpose to you, you can be more efficient because you understand which part of the 20% that I'm going to dedicate myself to. That means the 80% that you're now have spare, you also don't waste it, but you maximize by doing more of that. And that is something very important because I'm going to just jump a little bit. And this is something I wanted to cover a little bit later, but it's something like if you look at a person and he's very busy, right? Oh, he's always doing this and this and this, and he looks like he's doing like 100%, you know, always going on. But remember that 80% of what he's doing might be just wasted movements because he looks busy, but a hamster in a wheel is also busy. You just keep running all day long and you just say like, yeah, but he didn't get anywhere. And that's the idea. Someone who is efficient can also reach a distance with minimal effort instead of you really, really trying and going in circles sometimes or getting lost and then reaching there. So it's an iterative, repetitive idea that you have to become better with time. So first time you try it might not always be a straight path to solve the problem. You know, like the birds, we call it in Swedish anyway, the way to go from point A to B is the fastest one, of course, is for the birds. But if you look at the map, that's not always how life gives you the roads, right? So to become a good navigator, basically going the shortest possible path to solve a particular task. And to quote a famous martial artist is, I fear not men who have practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. And this is so, so true in a sense that you have to know your weapons. If you are good at certain skills and you're not good at others, you have to pick and see. This is something that I'm using daily in my classes or in my life around me. For example, communication skills, right? So that becomes my weapon, my kick, right? So identify what you're not good at and also what you could be better at and learn how to, I call it weaponize, but weaponize in the sense that you use it as a tool that delivers every day. Every time you try it out, you just become better and better. So it could be something like, yeah, just being good at, for example, waking up in the morning and getting ready. And a lot of people don't see the benefit of that. But let's say I woke up 5 minutes before I had to do something and I rushed to do everything. And that doesn't really get done in a proper way. Or I skipped a meal, I skipped lunch, and then I had to rush off and get some fast food or order some grab. So you are then at the back foot of time. You missed out pockets that were there, like you missed the train, and now you have to rush to catch up again. And a lot of times we are stuck either chasing time or we are rushing ahead of time so that it hasn't caught up with us yet. And balancing that present and future is really important, meaning to say, are you on the same pace as others as well? So for example, if let's say that today's class starts at 8, if you were here at 7:30, you wasted 30 minutes, right? If you came 8:30, you also missed 30 minutes. So in business meetings and in certain cultures, it's very courteous, it's very good manners to come right on time. Like, I wasn't there 15 minutes early. Oh, by the way, I was in the neighborhood and I just want to drop in and say hello. No, that's not how it works. Also, you don't keep people waiting. So being on time is something that requires skill. And as I did talk about earlier, if you can manage small appointments, and that goes to say, if you can manage an hour, what can you do in an hour? Let's say, okay, for those of us who are Muslim, whenever there's an adhan, I'm going to pray right after the Iqamah, which means 10 to 15 to 20 minutes after the prayer time. If you're a person who always prays at the end of the prayer time, that means you're a little bit behind. Yeah, you still qualify, but it's not the optimal way to do things. So if you can even learn to master those times that apply to all of us, and how we deal with them again is individual, then we can talk about how do you now go into, instead of an hour, you go into a day. So now you're planning your day. You become good at your day, you go into your week. From week, it becomes a month, a year, and so suddenly, just like I said in the beginning, the 5 to 10 year plan now is something that you can build on because you have a routine. You repetitively work towards that goal. It's like cycling towards that path, right? Instead of opening up a map and I say, I want to go there, but I had absolutely no clue how to go there. So in a way, you are also daydreaming. And daydreaming is not good because that's just fantasies. And our brain will always go into places that no man has ever gone before. So you need to be able to see, okay, that looks interesting. I can see myself there. And you also start to see a path there. The path is actually repetition. What can I do right now, or in the next hour, or tomorrow, or this week that will get me closer to that goal, right? If it doesn't, then I'm not aligned, and then that becomes a problem. And just like we see, this is a famous, one of the most famous samurai that ever lived, and he's saying, there's timing in everything. Timing and strategy cannot be mastered without a great deal of practice. And this is just to remind ourselves that if we really want to be good at something, even managing time, we have to be practicing this. How do you practice it? Not just by sitting in this seminar and say, look, I went for this talk for 2 hours and suddenly I'm in control of time. No. Today's outcome, I think I want to focus on you guys just getting this idea. What can I do tomorrow, starting from tomorrow? What can I do better? And again, we're talking about very theoretically, right? So if you're looking at what becomes something that you do repetitively, obviously that's habits, right? So you can either build a good or a bad habit within something, either from, the science has shown that it's from 18 days up until 100 or 200 days, but it depends on each person, right? So if a habit can be formed, you also have to look at what habits do I currently have that are actually in the way of me achieving a certain goal. For example, I want to do this exam. However, I have this bad habit of always falling asleep after class or during class, so I always have to do double work from everyone else. Oh, you guys have your own stories, I'm sure. I used to be like that. After lunch, when I had algebra class and I had a big dinner, a big lunch, I would just, my insulin levels will go down, blood sugar levels go down, and just doze off in the class and say, what happened? And then when time comes to study, I just like, wow, this is a mountain. I was sleeping all this time. But a person who was awake and fully alert, right, he didn't have to study as much because he was already there. And we were both placed in the same room for 1 hour, except that he utilized his time better. So he had a habit of, for example, being in a positive state of energy to go to class and to be able to pick up a new skill. So even just to quote the famous, and if a lot of people ask who's the smartest person on the earth who ever lived or whatever, people will say it's Einstein. But he himself says, it's not that I'm so smart, it's just that I stay with problems longer. And that's the idea, your ability to focus on something. So if I repetitively, habitually stay with problems until I solve them, you can discover quantum physics. I mean, literally you can do that, right? So that's what he did. And if you then look at your current life and say, look, I'm going into so many directions. I want to be able to do this. I want to be good at that. I want to, for me, myself, like, let's say, I use myself as an example only. I want to be good at martial arts. I want to become a good father. I want to become a successful businessman. I want to be a good public speaker. I want to be a good person with good morals and characters. But then you think to yourself, doesn't all this require investment in time? And again, as I was saying, a person who is focused on a particular set of goals, and I'm going to take an example of someone like, you guys know Habib Nurmagomedov is also from the country that I'm from, Russia, who is the retired UFC champion, but undisputed in the sense that he's not lost in 29 matches. And he was very focused from a young age. I mean, from someone who was trained to be a fighter, right? And he lived day in and out to be a fighter. So his learning curve, meaning to say he put a lot of investment to become absolute best at what he does, okay? And that got him to the top. But now that he retired, I actually follow his Instagram, and he said, oh, it's like I got out of prison, you know? So that regime cost him so much of his other, and we were talking about this, the wellness of, you know, for example, like social or he had no social life because he was so focused on his goal that he forgot to live a little, right? But now that it's opened up, and he's still young, he's only 30, I think 33 this year or 34. So he's got his whole life ahead of him, inshallah, and he can discover these things. But his investment was a way to show you that if you really want to become the really best at something, you have to dedicate all your time to it. However, not all of us are that focused to become this spear. Rather, we want to become at many things. And this is something that I think is really important, is how much time are you willing to put onto something, and how quickly do you become good at it? And there is a curve, and I found this in my life actually, that there is a certain path that you can look at. Like after, and we're just saying, like, I want to become, how many attempts does it take me to become rather good at something? And I always settle for being rather good at it and then move on to the next, so that I'm rather good at many things, but at the back of all those rather good things, I still have something that I've mastered. So you pick your, I mean, that's something that applies in your studies too. You pick a subject that becomes your major, but all those other things you also do well, but you know that I'm gonna spend this much time so that I can become rather good at it, but then I'm gonna become great at this. So it's something that is, you know, you are with your peers in school, and you look at this kind of curve where we see that there's going to be the percentiles, right? I mean, how do people score in a test, or how good are they on certain things? You know, what is it required to be a world champion at something, right? And that investment is something that you have to look at. How good do I want to be? And how good do I have to be to qualify for a certain job or a position? And you calculate that effort and see, okay, it requires this much. If you're now getting stuck on refining something, you become just spending more time, but you don't see growth, that means you're stagnating. Maybe it's either time to just lose that as your major, or pick up something new that is going to actually broaden your horizons, right? And that's very, very important. The next step is, once you put in all that effort, like, how do people do better? Because you cannot run a sprint the full day, right? As you guys know, like, a sprint is a sprint, and then a marathon is a marathon. So marathon runners and sprinters are two different ball games altogether. I mean, sorry, it's not really ball games, but a sprinter is good at short intervals. A marathon runner can do like 100 meters repetitively for, you know, 420 times. So that is unique. And they all know, when you come into this field of becoming good, is how do you recover? After you finish whatever you're assigned, for example, I want to go to this place, and I'm currently in here. Okay, this is going to take me 5 hours. Now, how do we recover so I can do it again at the same optimal way, or doing it better? So in between those things is actually your rest and recovery. And something that I discovered, which I think you guys can look up further as well, is the 90-minute sleep cycle. A lot of times when we rest, when we sleep, it's not really quality sleep. We go to bed, especially during my university days, I know it too well. Go to bed too late, wake up, and you're always behind, right? So I discovered this 90-minute cycle. That means it's not exactly 90 minutes. You have to just kind of clock yourself and see. So you multiply the amount of hours you sleep per day by 90 minutes, and usually that's your sleep cycle. If you wake up in the middle of a sleep cycle, you're gonna feel so heavy. Even though you slept for a very long time, like let's say 12 hours, you just feel like, I'm so tired. I just slept for 12 hours, because you might have woken up at the wrong end of the cycle. Sometimes you wake up after 5 hours and you feel fresh. It's like, what happened? Well, for me, it was, 90 minutes is 1.5 hours times, let's say 4, it becomes 6 hours, and then add on another one is 7.5 hours. So usually I either sleep 6 to 7.5 hours, which gives me proper rest, right? And I also sleep during the day to like a kind of power nap. You learn how to completely relax, and I mean really relax, until you just kind of doze off, and then 5 minutes, boom, you wake up and you feel like you just had 3 cups of coffee because you're so energized. So this kind of resting is very important to people who want to always be constantly giving their maximum. Also, a very important thing, we just mentioned Albert Einstein, right? When he was not solving the world's mysteries, you know, or the unification theory, which he worked on for a very long time. These are mind-boggling things, and he could spend very long on these problems, right? What did he do when he was not thinking about these problems? He was actually doing something more creative. He played the flute, right? So he was quite good at musical instruments. So that's what I want to tell you guys. If you are in a predicament that requires you to have like a left brain approach, you're always thinking in a way that is, you know, mathematical, or it's very logical and it's very serial. Make sure that your pastime, your rest time, whatever you do, which is when you rest, can still be a creative way, not just sitting in front of a TV or YouTube and just being fed, but something that you do, for example, a sports activity or some kind of creative work, maybe filming or taking photos, which requires this other part of your brain. And if I'm always in a creative mode for my work, I want to actually wind down by doing something logical, more like, you know, solving riddles or puzzles. So it helps me. Like I used to play Tetris a lot, and it helped me because I was, you know, I felt like, wow, this really gives me that. I love to structure things. So when you do it, I think it's really important for you guys to find that way. We're coming to a very important part. I know that time is, there's a lot of interesting things to talk about, but I'm gonna jump on to the next thing. So once you rest, you wake up and you say, okay, now what? All right, nutrition. How do you prepare yourself for the day? And all the way up until you go to sleep, what did you nurture yourself with to become the person you are now? Because imagine, the atoms or whatever you're built of didn't just stick to you by chance. It doesn't blow onto you like air. It doesn't just happen, right? That means you need to eat or drink something for it to become you. And think of it this way: whatever you touch and then put in your mouth becomes you, right? It's not an exaggeration. It's a scientific fact. So the quality of the things that you then ingest and digest becomes a part of you. So either you build your towers, the building blocks, from something that is of good quality or bad quality. So a good quality house and the craftsmanship that is, you know, the design that goes into it is a lot more valuable than something just runs on, you know, cup noodles. And whenever you say, I don't have time to cook and whatnot, just think about it. You're building a house. You're building this 10-year plan, like a highway, and you're building it out of like prefabricated, you know, foam. It's going to fall down and you have to rebuild it all the way. That means your investment is futile. Like you would have to redo it. Just again, like going to class, just showing up, and then like having to relearn all this again. So nutrition is very important. And I wanted to tell you guys, there's a secret of that I discovered very early, and it's starting to come into these nutritional terms like acidic and alkaline foods, right? I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it either sour or like bitter, right? So like acidic forming foods is usually that whatever we call junk foods. And if you guys cannot see the slide, I know it's small on the screens or whatnot, but it's basically all the junk foods you can name, right? And all the way on the other side, that's actually the alkaline foods. And I know from experience that I went up to buy like alkaline water machine. And I thought to myself, like, why does it cost almost 1,000 ringgit? And just for me to drink alkaline water, do I have to buy it for that much? Just to restore the pH balance in my body. Because remember, we're made out of like 70% plus water. So if our water is acidic or too much on either way, this is not our natural state. And we're supposed to be in a natural state. That means the optimal state for us is to be at a certain pH, like natural pH level, which is 7, right? So if you're eating too much junk food, your body needs to get rid of it in a certain way. And it's been proven that people who live longer, now we're talking about time, right? You will have a longer life by eating properly and especially ingesting alkaline foods. And this is like spinach, broccoli, artichokes, seaweed, lemons, cucumbers, onion, carrots, kale, green tea. Coffee is acidic, green tea is alkaline. So lemon water is something that I usually drink. Later on, you can just Google this online and see how can you make a dish, like a breakfast or a lunch or a dinner, out of just purely good foods. And just to give you some idea of good foods is, you can have apples, avocado, blueberries, watermelons, goji berries, kiwis. This is all sold in the supermarkets, right? Pak choy, broccoli, cauliflower, collard green, kale. If I promise you, go to your local market, you'll see a lot of these, okay? Nuts, seeds, almonds, garlics, chia seeds, cinnamon, oats, hemp, ginger, pistachios. So if you just Google superfoods, think, how can I replace whatever I'm eating with something that is a superfood? So a superfood was something with high nutritional value. That means you eat a spoonful of this, it gives you more energy than a spoonful of something else. So you eat the same amount of food, but it's more efficient because it gives you more energy. It makes a better you, basically. It builds a better you. So this is something that you need to bear in mind, that whatever you're fueling, like you go to the petrol station, I want to say, I want to have the best V-Power, Shell, the Formula One racing one. But then you're eating junk food, which is, the worst kind of petrol you can think of. So one interesting fact is that the month of Ramadan is coming up, and what Muslims around the world will be doing is fasting. Fasting has been part of many traditions for a very long time, for centuries or for thousands of years, millennia, basically. And it's a good way for us to reset our body. And by resetting, I mean it puts us in a state where the body can then cure itself. So instead of you relying on medicines, let's say, for example, I work really hard, I study all day, and I say, oh, I get this terrible headache. And the first thing you do is actually go and take some kind of medicine. Fasting would cure you from that. And a lot of times people say, oh, I don't like fasting, it's so difficult. But look, even for those of you who have read the Quran or study the Hadith, they say, Jannah, the paradise, is surrounded by things that are bitter or difficult and not very good, doesn't look very good. But hell is surrounded by all these sweet and lovely things, right? So in a way, what I did was I took a lot of these remedies like fasting or drinking apple cider vinegar, doing a lot of things which might not necessarily taste good, but they're good for you. And like I said, with repetition and with those carrots at the end of the stick, it becomes a norm until you just eat sugar and you say, this is too sweet, I can't take it, my body's not used to it. Because if you think about it, the coffees or the sweets, the sugar, the amount of sugar we consume now, it should be actually made illegal, because this is not good for anyone, but because it's cheap to produce and there's a lot of money in it, the people who are manufacturing these kind of foods just don't really think about people's long-term benefits, because the way that our medical system is built up is because it thrives on sick people, right? So we don't want people to be healthy. But if you want to hack that, you say, look, I'm not going to buy into what everyone else is doing. I'm going to live a healthy lifestyle so I don't have to go to hospital, because you should be eating, like, your foods should be your medication, not the other way around. You medicate yourself because of the food you ate. So fasting is something that is encouraged. And just to tell you guys, I was fasting before I came to Islam. And I used to fast twice a week, because that was what science was showing. This is the least amount of fasting you have to do to get the maximum benefit. And surprise, surprise, that's also the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Because even 1,400 years ago, they already knew this, right? So again, our science is not always discovering new things. Sometimes it's just, it was been there all this while, but we don't want to learn from it. And next thing, how do you exercise, right? Because again, if I'm sitting in front of the computer for 8 hours a day, I'm eating well, I'm sleeping well, but there's something missing. My energy level is not up, right? And it's a lot to do with just kind of putting your body into work. So it's in a state of burning calories and being this engine, right? This racing engine all this time, instead of just, at the red light and puffing. That's what 2020 felt like. But a lot of us notice when we start going out and being active, it just gives you that boost, right? So I wanted to show you guys this, an idea of how I came to martial art. And it's actually this exercise and calorie count or guide for how much how many calories you would burn per hour of a particular individual activity. So some of the highest calorie burners are actually martial arts, swimming, and running. But running, you have to go fast. You cannot come to the park and just run a little bit and say, oh, look, I'll burn this many calories. And a lot of times we have these smartwatches, which we're going to talk about, like the tools that you can use to see how many calories you burnt, how many steps you've taken. And you should strive to do something which is efficient as well. That's why for me, 1 hour of martial arts can be like 5 to 6 hours of walking. All right. So instead of spending 5 to 6 hours, which I don't have always, I would just go for a 1 hour of martial arts, 2 hours of martial arts, and it's going to give me that kind of calorie burn that you would normally not find unless you're doing some really hard like labor, on the construction site or something. So I think you guys need to choose your hobbies in terms of like football, but go in there and burn. Like, don't go there and like, I'm a goalie and I just barely do anything, just stand in the goal and just run, hee hee ha, everyone's having fun. Like, my purpose here is to become fit, right? So when you go running and say, look, I'm only gonna train for 10 minutes a day, but I'm gonna do it to the maximum. And there are some exercises like this, right? There are the high intensity interval trainings, which are very popular at the moment. You guys can also look at something called Tabata, okay? T-A-B-A-T-A, Tabata. If you Google it, you'll find some YouTube videos of just basically, it looks like high intensity interval trainings, but just a Japanese way of doing it. And it's very interesting because you go hard for some time, you stop, and then you switch activities and you start over. And if you go to a lot of the gyms or boxing clubs or martial arts studios, they will actually practice these kind of things. So it's very varied in terms of what your body does, but it's always, very high intensity. So a 10 to 15 minute workout can replace, let's say 3 hours of slow jogging, or just kind of like playing bowling and say like, do you do sports? And say, yeah, I bowl. But then you have to look at the fact that bowling only burns like 100 calories per hour. So for me doing martial arts for an hour, you would have to do 5 hours of bowling. So, pick your pastimes in a way that serves you to live an active and healthy lifestyle. Because if you don't, those choices that you make without being aware of this is what's going to dictate your life. So either you wake up today and say, oh, look, maybe the activities I'm doing are not optimal for where I want to be. I'm not saying be where I am. I'm also not 100% sure where I want to be and I'm going the right path or not. But be flexible enough to learn from your mistakes and say, look, yeah, it's true. Maybe I'm eating not in the optimal way. Maybe my exercise is not the optimal way, but I'm willing to correct this mistake. And we're going to look at these tools. I mean, what I'm talking to you guys about right now is something like we call the agile learning mode, right? Or Scrum methodology. I'm sure some of you guys who are in the software engineering have heard about this as well. So you reiterate, you recreate the process and you introduce improvements to it all this time, right? So there are a lot of modern tools from the business world or from other things like even software engineering, which we can apply to our lifestyle. So the way I've always done things is very simple. I first throw myself at it and give it a go just to see where I land. Okay, how good am I at this? And then I will try it a few more times and see what is my learning curve? How quickly can I pick this up, right? And then how much more learning does it require for me to become this good? And then you set your sights, for example, on that. And just to share with you guys, last Ramadan, I was a bit shy because in the fasting month, we go for the Tarawih prayers and we do this with our families. And sometimes they would ask me to lead the prayer because, I'm part of the family as well. And I was shy because I only knew, so few surahs. And I was thinking like, how can I learn? I just became a Muslim 4 years ago. And Arabic is a tough language. Quranic Arabic is tough. And then the fact that you have to recite the Quran in a very particular way, I thought to myself, how do I solve this? Meaning to say, I have to put myself into it completely and start to learn more surahs because I was not happy with what I was doing. So I had this affirmation and say, by next Ramadan, I want to be able to recite in front nicely. And I feel, I'm giving it the best kind of respect. I mean, you just have to do it because if you're reciting it loudly, I mean, if you're the imam, you have to really do it well. So that kind of forced me to perfect my recitation. And again, for those of you who are not Muslims, it could be anything. So that if you set your goal, and I said, I had this information, I want to learn more. And inshallah, I'm hoping that before the start of this current Ramadan, I already, hopefully, memorize a whole juz. That means 34 surahs, or at least 20 pages. And I tell you, I did not think I could do it. But what happened was, with this kind of repetition, affirmation, and the tools, meaning to say you have the Quran in your pocket all the time through your phone, you can just set a schedule and become good at anything. And it's proven. If you put your mind to it and you put your effort to it, you can achieve anything, right? So just to skip ahead, because we're only got about 5 minutes left, and then go into the Q&A. Basically, if you are thinking, how do we actually apply this to our school and our exams and whatnot, I want you to think of a few things. All right. So when you sit down for an exam, you're always forced to solve problems. All right. And say, okay, I have this. The way that I found it, and I work a lot with search engines and whatnot, like Google has taught us a lot about how to be quite good at anything, really, because you can get an answer for anything on Google, but sometimes asking the right question will give you the right answer. If you don't know how to ask questions correctly, you will never have the answer. So answer doesn't just drop on your head. You actually have to engage the answer by posing a question. So becoming better at asking questions. And what is a question? It's a problem statement, meaning to say, before I can have a solution, I need to define the problem. And in defining the problem, you often find the solution. So if there's something that you can take away from today, is just become better problem solvers by being able to define the problem better. So if you come to the exam and say, okay, how do I understand this problem? And dilute it into each minimal point so you can see, okay, this is very clear. But again, this is something which doesn't always apply to specific knowledge. This is something that is more applicable to creative knowledge. It means there's not one right answer, but there's many. But something like mathematics, there's only one right answer. So that's more difficult. But at least when you get an exam, you need to be structured. You open up and you read it from beginning to end and see how many questions are there. Okay, 40 questions. I have 1 hour. How many marks am I getting per question? Divide that by the amount of the minutes you have, and then you would roughly know how many minutes I need to spend on each task. And then focus first on the problems that you can solve and that you do quickly, meaning to say these ones, easy points. So pick the easy stuff first, and then spend your time on solving the harder, and gradually you just end up on things that you don't know. That one you cannot control, but just make an educated guess and it will be fine. So again, this strategy applies for most tasks, but not as easy to do on specific or subjective knowledge. But I hope it works. And again, you always have to have that belief that you can do it. If you tell yourself that you cannot do it, most likely that affirmation is already blocking you from doing it. So, like we did, pray a dua, please help me, whoever you are praying to. And, that one God can help you to achieve. And if you have that faith, usually it's already good because you have the belief you can do it. That means the belief is, I already saw it happening, therefore I will find a way there. And always try to do your best in any situation. Then you don't have to do it only at exams, because exams are just for you to kind of deliver when you're asked to. But you can try to become this habitual, I wouldn't say perfectionist, but someone who looks for perfection. And for those of you, I don't know, like I haven't actually put that on my tag. I'm not a very big practitioner of social media, but I put it on my WhatsApp status that I'm the error-prone perfectionist. And what that means is I'm always prone to errors. Whatever I do, I will say the wrong things or do the wrong things. But in my mind, I'm trying to do the perfect thing. And it always starts that way. So when you are aiming for 100% at your exams and you turn out at 86, alhamdulillah, at least 86, But if you're aiming for, I'll just pass at 80, and you're going to end up at 66. So your target is very important. Like if you set your goals too low, you feel like achievement is easy, but it shouldn't be, because you're not competing with anyone else except but yourself. In a sense, you only have one shot at everything you do, because again, back to the start, you have only the present. Only the present. In that present, you can either achieve better than you think you could, or you can just do okay, which is not even up to your maximum capacity. So if you look at any kind of training, specifically martial arts, your fights, the tournaments, the battles that you fight to win prizes happen in your training. So how you train is how you fight, usually, as we say. So if the daily activities, like going to class or studying for homework, that's my training. And then the exam is the battle. But how you train is also how you do your exams. So you have to become just better at those little pockets. So I want to give you a formula, guys, for how to do it. So think of it this way. A solution that we spoke about, the problem statement, and looking at the solution, is having this kind of theory, like the mindset. I'm going to solve it in this particular way, right? So you already know, okay, this is the blueprint for my solution. Then I'm going to have technique, and this is my implementation. So I'm not always like good at implementing what I think I can do, but at least I'm improving that. Or none of these to work, so I need to increase my effort. That means just work harder, because working harder without strategy or technique is a waste of time, because it's not going to improve your results by a lot, right? So you have to look at something where efficiency comes in, is where you can make this into something which becomes repetitive, and you can put it into a system. And modern tools like Scrum, Agile, the Kanban theories, or the methods have all helped us to develop this kind of strategies or ways to achieve problems easier. So waterfall is this very serial approach, right? When you do things from task A to Z, you know, I have this homework, this homework, this homework, this homework, and then you do it step by step, or you just mix it up, becomes very dynamic, and you do it so that it fits a certain pattern that you've discovered, and you repeat it and you can become better at it. So I think this is something you can apply onto almost anything that you do, whether it's learning a language, whether it's studying for an exam, whether it's learning a new hobby, or doing anything in particular. So even like myself, I'm very picky about even how I put shoes on the shoe rack or fold my clothes, and not because I'm OCD. It's just that I believe that we have been designed in a certain way, and there's a good design and a bad design. So as a creative person, I know that decorating something is the same thing as putting things in the right place. So there's a better place, not to say there's a right and wrong, but there's a better place and a worse place for a certain vision that you have. So then you have to apply this onto your daily life, right? And again, trying is half of the effort, but I want to tell you guys something about what we can draw from all this talking for 1.5 hours almost, is that if you do something, it can either turn out good or less good. And you tried it again, the outcome is the same. Again, outcome is the same. So we have these two terms, accuracy and precision, right? So precision is how close to the bullseye can you get? If I throw a dart, it's going to go into 100 every time. That's accuracy. So not only can I hit the bullseye, but I can do it repeatedly. So a person can sometimes be accurate but not precise. So he can hit 20 all the time. So he's very accurate in hitting that particular spot, but it's the wrong spot. Or precision, he's hitting 100, but he does it every 10 times. So the rest, it just flies off the board. So in life, you need to both have the accuracy and the precision in your attempts. So when you do something, it's accurate and precise to the point that it solves the problem with the least amount of effort, and it gives you the maximal results. And the formula for this is your discipline, and people say you must have discipline, and say there's such a vague term. Like discipline is, yeah, I'm disciplined. What does that mean? That means you, in your mind, have a strategy, right? And it's an effective way to do things. That means you find a way to do it efficiently, and you keep repeating it all this time. All right, so it becomes something like your routine. So if you routinely apply a good strategy where you are an efficient, someone who does it efficiently, therefore you will have discipline. So people say, oh, he's got very good discipline. So in a way, that's one way to kind of habit hack this whole course. If I'm given this amount of time, become better at problem solving, become better at implementing that solution, and keep doing it all the time, and treat every opportunity to do even the mundane tasks as an opportunity to learn. That means either I can use it to my benefit, or I can do it just like anybody else when nobody cares and say, look, everything is your practice field. Everything. Tying your shoelaces can be a practice field, right? Powering on computer and finding new things. Like, people say, whoa, you're so fast to type and whatnot. So look, if I'm going to spend this much time in front of a computer, might as well I'd be really good at typing. So just, for those of you who are interested, try and see how many words per minute you can write. And then see if you could improve by 20 to 30%, how much time would that actually lessen you sitting in front of the computer writing? So those are just some ideas for you guys to see that everything, even the most mundane task, can become a way to achieve better goals. And every day, every hour, every week, and every month that we said was a sign of the creation, you use that to be in this cycle of also being in a state of the best you that you can possibly be. Because the only way you can be the best is, again, like I said, right at this moment. So if you're feeling sleepy right now, you're tired, for me, going on for 1 hour plus about these topics, say, look, I need something to freshen me up. At least get a good quality, either rest or good quality food that can keep you motivated through these things. When there's an apex of learning, I need to be aware for this. I'm not going to miss it, because again, not all pockets of time are important. Like, for example, a boxer will train 9 months before he goes for a fight, and the fight will last only 1 minute. So that 1 minute has a lot more importance than any of those other minutes that were in that 9-month period. However, inside that 9 months, there were just pockets of minutes and minutes and minutes and minutes put together. So when he then explodes and then just goes bam, that becomes the fight, then you execute, right? So in life, you never know when this time is going to come. For example, you can be just randomly headhunted or picked up for an interview. It's like, oh, this guy knew this job, and you're put on the spot. You have zero time to prepare, and suddenly you have to give an introduction about yourself. If you're always practicing, right, and you kind of know that this chance is going to come one day or the other, then you're ready for it. If not, you're just hoping for the best. And if you're not doing it through awareness, you're not aware for how you're going to do it, it's just by chance. And do you want to live your life so it just happens by accident? Or do you want to live your life so that you're in control of it? And control, you can never control things, but you can calculate where it's going to go based on your current performance. And you're training for it. You're training for life, basically. So when life comes, you're perfectly fit to receive it. Instead of looking back and said, I wish I could have done that differently. I wish I can redo this. Those wishes are in the past, and you cannot do anything about them. But you can learn from mistakes and become a better problem solver who goes into the future with confidence. And a lot of times people get depressed because they look too much into their failures and say, I haven't achieved anything. No, look, your mistakes can also be part of your learning if you use them as such. A person who's doing mistakes without realizing that they are mistakes misses the opportunity. But a person who is good is the one who's done the most mistakes. So someone who has failed a lot usually achieves success. But a person who achieves success without failing, on the first failure after the success, he will give up because he's not used to failing. So a lot of times in martial arts or in other kind of in ways that you can learn is to fail. All right, so they'll teach you to knock you down, to push you down. And how you get up, that's going to say something about your character. How you recover from failure, right? So everyone fails. I mean, like, there's not a person who's perfect. So how do you deal with failure is going to determine how you then take success. So for someone, we always want to see how successful people are. Yeah, but think about it this way. How good at you are failure? And become good at failure. That's why we said, be good at the chores, be good at the boring stuff so that you can become great at the good stuff, right? So be good at failure so you can be great at success. And without failure, I don't believe that there is anything. So look at yesterday, try to do better now so that you can do even better tomorrow. And that's the formula. And just every day repeat. Because remember, whatever you've done in the past is just on a sheet of paper somewhere, like, okay, this is my exam result or whatnot. That is temporarily for that particular moment, right? It will go away. But this mindset or the state of being able to perform at optimal levels is what makes a champion, right? It's not something that, oh, he achieved this and then he stopped. Because then they'll become depressed, suicidal, and whatnot. You see a lot of people who were successful at the time, they drop down for the height of their career, and they're no longer happy people because they were so used to winning that when they no longer win, they don't see anything like as worthwhile anymore. But if you're a person who's ready for anything and ready to commit himself at 100%, then I think you will enjoy life a lot better, a lot more. So I think we're just a little bit over the mark, but if I'm not mistaken, we're going to start a Q&A. So I really hope you guys can take at least 1 or 2 points away from this monologue of mine. So I hope for it to become more of a dialogue in the next couple of minutes. And if you need me to elaborate onto something or ask questions or looking for advice, now would be a great time. So you can either type in the chat, I think, and we see if I can help you with any of it, inshallah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Karyal, for this amazing information. Thank you so much. Now we will proceed with Shoaib to present the Q&A session. Shoaib, the mic is yours.
Thanks, Abdul Fattah. We will start our Q&A session. So anyone who has question can write in the chat section or raise your hand to unmute your mic so that you can speak your doubts. The first question will be asked by Tengu Luqman Hakim. Hi, Tengu.
Assalamualaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
All right. Assalamualaikum, Mr. Kirill. Thank you so much for the wonderful sharing session. In your sharing session, you have mentioned about the different pace in the multiple countries. So my question is, what is the right way for us to adapt? Or I think most of us are quite confused how to adapt in different countries. What is the right way to adapt?
That's a very good question, actually. And walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh if you didn't hear me there before. Okay, so I've traveled to, if I'm not mistaken, over 50 or almost 60 countries in my life. Some of it has just been for tourism, other places I've lived. And one thing I can tell you is you have to be a person that is willing to let go of yourself. So when you say, I am a certain person, I am this, I am that, you're putting yourself into a box. And you have to be able to try new things as long as they're not interfering with your religious beliefs or something that you feel is like haram. So you go to the West and you say like, oh, everything is forbidden here. No, but there's a lot of things you can do, but you have to be able to try. And I think this is the fear of failure that stops us from trying out new things. We say like, have you tried bungee jumping? It's like, no, but how would you know that you're good at it or you like it? Say, well, I don't think I'm gonna like it. But you have to push yourself to try things that you wouldn't normally do. So when you go to a different country, there's a lot of things like foods, for example, oh, I don't like it. It's too sweet or it's too salty. I like my food back home. I like mommy's cooking. We all do. But the thing is, adaptation is to say that now that I don't have the choice to rely on my old habits, can I learn to create new ones, right? And actually, that's like a really good example. I think is really interesting. When I came to Malaysia, right, and the first time people let you try durians, and a durian would be a good metaphor to answer your question. For a person who's got this limited palate of taste, if we come from Europe, we have this, like, it's a little bit salty, it's not spicy at all, it's very bland food. So people who go to UK and whatnot, like they eat the local food in Europe and just say like, this is boring, right? I cannot go to Europe anymore without bringing my chilies. So that's something which is really true. But durians is something that is so rich, right? That a person who tastes it for the first time is not accustomed to how much flavor there is. And sometimes when you say, I don't like it, yeah, but how many times did you try it? If I say, I tried something once, I don't like it. You go to a different country, say, oh, I tried it once. Yeah, but wait, so you're telling me you tried to do something for 1 hour or 1 minute, and then suddenly you don't like it. Imagine if I come and say, I don't like Islam. How long have you practiced Islam? Actually, no, I don't practice Islam. I've heard about it. People told me something. It's like, no, for you to become a better understanding of who you are, involve yourself more into things and give them a try. And a try doesn't mean I tried it once. Really try local customs, try new things until you feel, ooh, I see a challenge there. And if you treat everything as a potential to become a new or better you will see a new roads opening up everywhere. That means anything that you thought was boring actually can become really fun, right? Or become this new person that you never thought you would be. Because again, if we were already thinking that we are going to be like this, and we fix ourselves in this idea, then we will never become like different, right? So we will never evolve or become better people. So I think just be open for new challenges and treat them with the same approach. Just dive in, give it a try.
Thank you, Luqman, for your question, and thank you, Mr. Kirill, for your good answer.
Welcome.
Okay, so now we'll proceed to the next question. Please raise your hand if you have a question, or leave it in the chat section.
Yeah, I think either it was crystal clear, everyone understood everything I was saying, or just too many things to think about. I think we're bombarded people with a lot of concepts and whatnot. But if you feel like if you have any questions that applies to your, something more specific in your life, how to do certain things that are, going to happen tomorrow, or like the first thing in the morning tomorrow, just feel free to ask.
Okay, guys, don't be shy. Come and ask your question. Okay. Okay, the next question will be asked by Abdulaziz Alatir. Hi, Aziz.
Hi, Shai. Thank you. Hi, Mr. Kirill. First of all, thank you very much for not just, enlightening us with techniques and tips, but really inspiring us a lot. To me and almost everyone, I guess, it wasn't just a time management workshop. Rather, it was a life workshop. A lot of workshops were combined together. So the takeaways are a lot and countless. So thank you very much. If I were to think of a question, it would be, how do we prioritize? You mentioned that life throws on us a lot of things, and I believe that's true. Things change quickly in our working field or study field or whatever. So to stay on top of competing priorities, deadlines, and needs without getting overwhelmed. Perhaps from me, I can speak from the perspective of a student, and a student who participates, in extracurricular activities and quite active. Besides studying and social life and a lot of things, sometimes I feel it puts a lot of pressure on me. So that's my first question. My second question is how to deal with other people when you're working in a working field, in the corporate world, or even on the university level. Like, you will be engaged to work with others So when some of those others do not do the work, and you are the someone who has to actually, take over, so that puts a lot on you. So how to deal with such situation? Thank you, sir.
Oh, that's very good questions. I think that actually is something that I should have mentioned in the workshop already. So I think this hopefully can be part of it as well. So prioritization is something very, very interesting, because this is something that I can tell you as a metaphor is applied onto the martial arts scene. So if you, for example, are defending yourself and there's 3 attackers coming at you, so let's say it's a whole gang of people who want to attack you, you cannot take them out all at the same time. That means you have to prioritize which one is the most urgent at this moment, so I then can fix the other 2, right? And then every time you take one down, he's gonna maybe stand up and come back at you again. Every new turn is going to ask you to reevaluate your current position so that you can always keep yourself at an optimal position to solve parallel problems in a serial way. And that's how life works. Like you have parallel problems, but only a serial way to solve them. That means if you guys play video games, it's kind of like Space Invaders or something. They're moving against you, but you see which one is the closest one, which one poses the most risk to me, right? So you take them out one by one. So if you start by doing like the non-important things first, and then whatever was important, you procrastinate and wait until it falls down on you, that's going to be a lot heavier. But if you can learn how to see which problem is the most urgent one, and sometimes they have this built in, like if, for example, people start to push you and say, hey, how about that thing? That means that task just went from standard importance priority to more priority, right? Or if you're already behind a schedule or deadline, that means that should be put onto optimal priority. So inside those tasks, I'm sure like you already know the answer, like how are they prioritized? Let's say I have 5 exams, which one do I prioritize? Well, again, like I said, if you can figure out what score do I want to achieve? I think this one I'm doing A, C, C. This one I want to raise to B's. That means if I study more, I can maybe get an A+, but I would have to spend 40 hours to get an A+. Here, I can get 40 hours. I can improve my C's to an A. So I would say, spend your time with some kind of this calculation of how much does my investment going to be a return on. And then, of course, you cannot guarantee it, but you can at least hope for that's going to be the case. So for the second question, you were saying about people, right? The dealing with people in the outside world. I truly believe that you can only be a person of character when you treat even the worst person with respect, right? And sometimes life will throw these difficult people at you to test you, because it's easy to run away from difficult people, and then you will be surrounding yourself with people that always think like you, always talk like you, and you feel happy about, but they will not challenge you. They will not challenge your way to act. They will not challenge your patience. They will not challenge you, how to be a good person to people who are not even good at you. And I think, again, the person of moral character is someone who is good to people, even when people are not good to them. It's very easy to be good to people when they're good to you. And that's courteous. Like, the world is full of courteous people. Like, you greet me, I greet you back. But what happens if this guy doesn't greet you? Do you become angry? So then you are a person who is responding to the world, right? So if the world is not happy with you, I'm not happy with the world. So do you want to live your way always reacting to bad energy? And there's so much bad energy in the world. So all you have to do is go outside, take a little bit of it, and then suddenly you say, no, I don't want to be here. I want to hide in my little space where I feel like this is a positive space. I'm going to stay there. No, you have to be good at responding to negative energy with good energy. And that's how people say. They say, I want to change the world. But they cannot change the world because they're not ready for all that amount of people who don't want them to change. Like, I go out there and I say, I'm going to make this place better. And they say, no, I don't want your change. They say, okay, never mind. I don't want to change the world. So first you start with changing yourself, right? So that no matter what setback you get, you still persist, because my goal is clear. No matter what comes in my way, I already see the goal beyond that. So a person who is difficult to deal with is a way for you to learn how to deal with difficult people. If he wasn't there, you don't have an opportunity to know that. So in a way, we should be thankful for those people to be there so we can learn. Otherwise, there is no chance for us to learn. So I hope that solves the question a little bit.
Yes, it did. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Aziz. And thank you, Mr. Kirin, for your answer. Okay, due to time constraints, we will have our one more last question. And this question is from the chat section. So, Mr. Kirill, Kasafa Raj would like to ask you, since we are like college students, have hectic schedules, how do we cope with this kind of schedule? Because I'm always feel depressed on this. Is there any way, sir? Kindly advise.
Okay, this is a very good one, because I think we were touching on this in the session as well, that when you have, X amount of subjects and you feel like you're running behind a little bit here and there, eventually it's going to pile up on you and your feeling is going to get worse and worse because you feel like I'm so behind on time, right? And okay, my way to solve this is not necessarily the way that you can do this, but just this is one of the approaches, right? And you need to get in the mode. And what the mode means, you need a warm up, and then you need to, like if you go jogging, for example, you just don't go down to the street and suddenly start running, 15 kilometers an hour. I mean, you need a warm up session, right? You need to stretch a little bit. You need to run the warm up, the 2 kilometers warm up, and then you run the rest of the session. Same thing with problem solving or tasking. And how does this apply to class? Well, if you're behind on homework, for example, like you don't feel good about this schedule because like I feel like it's, we're supposed to read 3 books and I'm already like 1 book behind. The thing to do first is prioritize to see, just like back to the question of prioritization. Which task can I do easily just to get going on problem solving? So I usually do is, let's say I have 10 things to do and I know like some of them are very heavy. I will just pick 2 or 3, which I can do almost instantly. That means I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3. 3 tasks out of the way. That means, your checkbox is going to be something like this, in a way that, I have 10 tasks, but if I mark 3, 30% is already done. Doesn't matter how much. And that is a good feeling already. So you need to create this feeling of already achieving a little bit so that you can achieve more. But if you feel like, oh, I don't even want to try because even trying is not going to help, that's the wrong way. And maybe not the wrong way, but maybe you're trying to solve the wrong problem at the wrong time. Take something smaller, get it done, and then do it well. And then move on to the difficult one. So get yourself warmed up for the difficult ones. And a lot of people feel depressed because the problem's too big. I'm not ready to do it right now. And you're trying to like eat of it like straight away. No. Do something like chores that, I haven't cleaned my room for a while. And I was like, ooh, that was done. Now I go for the big one. So get in the zone. And I hope that helps.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kirill. Okay, this was our last question. I think Luqman wants to add something. Okay, Luqman, ask your question.
It's me again, Lukman Hakim. Right. So my second question is, everyone has a different learning curve, and then sometimes they are very fast and ahead of us, and sometimes we would feel that we are left behind. We are very slow, and then we are very left behind, and sometimes it will make us very disappointed with ourselves. So my question is, how do you know that you are in the right pace? Like, is it the right way to put a benchmark for yourself?
Yeah, I understand your question. I think this is a very, very valid question. And Okay, just to give you an idea again from martial arts perspective, I think this makes sense. You know, like when you say I'm a black belt at something, that usually means you're quite good at something, right? But a person who is 15 years old, who comes to the martial arts class, or a person who is 50 years old, we cannot expect the same thing from them, right? Because they're physically different, they're mentally different, but they both can become black belts. So when you look at it, traditional things like exams and whatnot, so like a score represents how much you've learned. But the answer to your question for me is, don't judge yourself by always looking at others. Judge yourself compared to yourself. That means, how well can I do, like according to my ability? And if you always compare yourself to people, you always feel like you cannot achieve. And if in Islam we say that always look to people who are less fortunate than you in the material world, and always look up to people who are in front of you when it comes to the spiritual, like for example your ilm, like your religious knowledge and whatnot. So if you're always looking at people who have more than you will never be satisfied, because there was always going to be someone better, right? Even if you're the top student, you will just be so afraid because there's someone else in a different school better than you. So no, be confident that I'm just going to learn how to try my best, no matter what it is. And if I cannot do my best, I'm going to figure out why, and then just keep trying, because failure should be a way to adapt, right? And again, like there's a question in the chat as well, which I'm going to try to answer, which is part of this question too, is like, if you were in this habit of always being here and there, and you feel like, okay, this semester I'm doing quite well, but then last semester I wasn't doing well, and I got a little bit behind. And next semester I might like, am I in the right place? I'm start doubting myself, getting depressed and whatnot. So see, if you always feel like you have to achieve 100% all the time, it can be a little bit difficult for you to feel like you're always doing well. So let's say you have 3 weeks doing great, and then 1 week not doing so good. You need to give yourself time to come down as well. Like, don't be afraid to fail, but don't make it a habit to stay there. Like, get out of there quick. And that's what I mean. If you feel like you're a little bit sad about a situation, try to pick something that you're already good at to kind of remotivate you. So that's why it's good to know what, like, okay, this is my passion, my skill. So for example, some people say, oh, every time I go running, I just clear my mind, So one good way for us, like during the MCO and whatnot, what you guys can try to do is like this. If you don't feel motivated to do something, just start. Don't do it, but just start. Take the first step. Like for example, if I want to go to the gym, but I don't have the motivation, just say, I'm not going to train, but I'm just going to go and sit at the gym. Okay? Or I don't feel like studying for this exam, but I'm going to put the book on the table. I'm just going to let it sit there. Because if you already did the first step, I guarantee you, the rest is going to be much, much easier. So it's just about being able to tell yourself, like, look, I don't have to do like the whole thing all the time. I don't have to ace everything, but I'm going to try. And the trying is always, I'm going to never be afraid to take the first step. So I hope that at least answers a little bit of your question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kirill. And this will be our last question. So I will return the mic to Abdul Fattah to proceed with the event.
Thank you, Mr. Kirill, and thank you, Shoaib. Kindly, I want all of you to prepare your phone to scan the QR code to get your scoring and the e-certification. And the QR code will be shared for a specific time, exactly 5 minutes. And for those are not able to scan, you will find the link in the chat box. And before I share the QR code, I want you, once you finish with scanning the QR code, please wait, don't leave. We still have the last session, which is the photo session. The 5 minutes start now. If any of you facing any trouble with the scanning, please let me know so we can help.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yes, I face a bit trouble
Yes.
with the scanning, but first of all, I would like to thanks Mr. Can you remind me his name?
Carry on.
Kuriel. Thank you for this meeting and also we are a pleasure to be one of our Muslims.
Alhamdulillah.
God bless you. God bless you.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, Jazakumullah khairan to everyone for the opportunity to be.
How long have you been in Russia?
Russia only nine years. Moved out when I was just in second grade school.
Вам говорить по-русски?
Да, говорю.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah.
Yeah, speak a few
Did you
languages.
still facing any problem?
Yes, still, really. I don't know.
Can you just use the link in the chat?
Link in the chat.
Yeah. In the chat section. Yeah.
Okay.
1 minute left.
It doesn't work.
Really?
Yes. Anyway, I think the problem from if I open my camera, it could be. No.
It's
doesn't.
working from my side, so I think it's just from your side, sir.
Yes.
So you can PM
this
me
is-
through WhatsApp. You will find my number in any poster that we have sent it before. You will find it down of the posters.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Most welcome.
Bye.
Are you done, guys? The rest. Yes, I will keep it for 1 more minute and I will proceed. Okay. Now we will proceed with the photography session, which will be presented by Brother Omar. Omar, the mic is yours.
All right. Thank you, Abdel Fattah. And thank
Oh,
you very much,
okay.
Mr. Khalil, for the wonderful workshop. I would like to ask all of you to open your camera, please. I will give less than 1 minute to prepare. Can you all please open your camera? Yes, please. Go, guys. Don't be shy. Right. I will start the countdown. Or are you ready, all of you? Okay. 3, 2, 1. All right. And freestyle, guys. Yeah. All right. So I will try the together mode, okay? Just for one picture. Only one picture. Okay. Okay. Start the countdown. 3, 2, 1. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you, Omar.
Okay. Thank you, brother Omar. Let me just, okay. Okay. I, as the program director, would like to thank everyone for joining this workshop. We hope that you have benefited from this workshop. Special thanks for our amazing speaker, Mr. Keller, for enlightening us today. Last but not least, I would like to thank the ISS organizing team for this workshop. Shuaib Shukri, as the vice director of this program, Omar bin Sawad, Mashia, Tasneem, Abdul Aziz Al Ater, and of course our multimedia and marketing department, Muhammad Lashin, Rinad Badr, and Abdul Qadir Muhammad. Finally, I would like to end this session by تسبيح الكفارة. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. With سورة العصر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. صدق الله العظيم. Thank you. I really appreciate your joining. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abdul.
Most welcome.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Most welcome.
You are welcome.
So thank you for all. Alhamdulillah الذي بفضله تتم الصالحات. Thank you. I really apologize, Mr. Carroll, for the missing pronunciation for your name. Yeah. I really practice all the day, but yeah, I am so sorry for that.
No worries, it's funny. That's the thing we were saying. Like you can practice, and then when the time comes, it's live
Yeah.
events is always something else.
You know, during the workshop, I miss many things that I am trying to practice more during the. So,
You did great, Abdul. We all enjoyed it.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, actually, it used to be my nicknames in school too. They call me because they cannot pronounce my name. This was either like Killer, or Kilroy, or Kiwi, all kinds of different funny things, you know.
That's cool. Then Abdul wasn't the first.
No. This is standard procedure.
Right.
People still
Thank
logged in?
you once again, sir. By far, this is absolutely one of the best workshops that I've ever been to.
Yeah, sorry guys, it cannot happen, on campus. I mean, virtual is still, like, I don't know how many people were signed in during the talk, but if I imagine if we're all, together in the same space would be a lot more amazing. But this is the best we can do at the moment, and yeah.
But inshallah, we will have. Why not? Like we expect this to end soon,
Yeah, I hope so too. I hope there's no, I mean, I'm not sure what you guys' rules are, like if they open you up, like the vaccination policy or whatnot, there's a lot of things we don't know.
That's true. We can't wait to see you, sir, in campus, inshallah, one day. We have some, amazing facilities to, hold this kind of activities and workshops. So we look forward to it, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. To be honest, I don't want to end this session, but that's it.
I have to go pray Isha now, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.